Nick, what a tangled web we weave whenever it's time to talk about Adam Sandler in a drama. Let's do Spaceman. Ladies and gentlemen, it's another episode of Two Peas on a Podcast where we review the latest and sometimes greatest movies every week. You got Gerald here with you, and of course, over on the flip side is my furry little eight-legged insect friend, Nick. How are you?
Alien does whatever an alien does. What's up,
Yeah,
baby?
man.
What's up?
What's up,
Welcome.
Dude?
Two peas in the his Z.
Yes, Two Peas in space.
Man, peas in space. Man, that'd be
Hey,
tight.
we should aspire to that. That'd be
We
cool.
should. Let's sometime this year. Let's do a whole episode just in spacesuits, where we have big respirating devices making all sorts of noise for Dan to remove in post
It'll
production,
be great.
and where we can't hear each other, like our radios keep breaking up, and I'm
Have,
just
like,
gonna
the-
assume that yours is just gonna be a larger version of your head. Yes, thank you for
Yeah.
just your helmet's just gonna look like a bigger version of your head with the beard.
Ear.
Be perfect.
Yeah, we should
Be
do that.
perfect.
We should do that.
it,
Let's
baby.
do the. We're gonna do the kind of new segment that we've been playing around with called "Spill the Peas" this week, and Nick is probably still working on a sound drop at some point. So, do you want to just say "Spill the Peas"?
Gerald, don't spill the peas.
That's actually pretty good. Put some music behind that. We could use it.
I'm using it. Now that's it. Now you just heard it.
That's gonna be it.
Dan, send me that clip. I need that clip.
With some, do some music or something. You'll figure that out. So the reason I wanted to do it this week is because the Oscars, as we're recording, were last night. The 96th Annual Academy Awards. Hopefully Nick pulled up the winners there at least, because I know he did not watch the broadcast live. Although, Nick, there was a couple things that you would have really liked on the show. John Cena came out naked
I saw that.
to present Best Costume Design, and he was just covering his junk with the envelope. That was cool.
As you do.
That was a funny little skit. I couldn't see him though. It was John Cena. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, everybody already made the joke of the envelope was just hanging in midair and nobody understood
It was
how.
just there floating in space. Michael Keaton was there, kind of doing his Batman. He kind of brought back his
Yeah,
Batman.
that's Danny DeVito and Schwarzenegger. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. So there's a couple really cool callbacks for our era for sure. But I just want to talk to you a little bit about, I guess, the way it kind of played out since you didn't watch the broadcast itself. But in terms of the winners, you and I talked a couple weeks ago. We were kind of talking about what might happen. Best Actress was obviously the big kind of question mark going into the night.
Yep.
At least for the high-profile awards, and it was always Lily Gladstone for Killers of the Flower Moon versus Emma Stone for Poor Things, both of which I know you saw.
Yep.
It ended up going to Emma Stone, and up until last night, Lily Gladstone was kind of thought in most circles to have the momentum. She had just won the Screen Actors Guild Award. Both of them had a Golden Globe because they did the comedy and the drama.
Right, yeah.
So they had equal accolades and precursors kind of leading up to the night, but it ended up going to Emma Stone for Poor Things. Now, having seen both of the films, what do you think of that outcome? Did the right woman kind of win there?
I am in support of or outraged by the decision, depending on whoever's listening and whatever take they choose to take away from it. No, I mean, I loved both performances. Both performances were great. Gladstone was the best thing about Killers of the Flower Moon by a country mile. So if anything deserved to win from that film, Lily Gladstone did. And I mean, Emma Stone is Poor Things. I mean, that film doesn't exist without. I mean, I know it's got the Yorgos weirdness to it, and Ruffalo doing his best version of Mike Myers' character from Inglourious Bastards. I'll never be able to unassociate those things in my head. But yeah, I mean, that role is like so much of her and like so much of the energy and the entire thrust of that film. I think in terms of a commanding lead performance, I would definitely give the showier performance to Emma Stone, of course, because she's front and center and she's big personality and everything like that. While I think Lily Gladstone's role is a lot more quiet, a lot more reserved, and a lot more kind of in between the lines, as it were. Like I said, I'm simultaneously I am elated and thrilled if you're an Emma Stone stan, and if you're outraged that Lily Gladstone was robbed, I'm outraged. I'm outraged with you. Either one winning would have been great.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
like one win doesn't take away from the greatness of the other's performance either. So
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it was just tough because I mean, I had predicted Emma Stone, so it wasn't a shot. But it's funny because I predicted Emma Stone, but I preferred Lily Gladstone. Like if I had a vote, but what was tough with this award is that Emma Stone is in Poor Things. Like she's on screen like 90% of the time, if not more. I mean, she is in literally every
it's her
shot of
movie
that
through
movie.
and through. It's her movie through and through.
But then you have Lily Gladstone, who is a standout, but I think I saw a stat where she's only in like 26% of the movie, and it's a long movie. So she's gone for large portions of that film. And there was talk of her being a supporting actress initially, and of course, she ended up being in the lead category. So I don't know, man. I just think the Academy voters that saw that, they were just like, well, Emma Stone's basically running this thing. So,
Yeah,
and
I mean that's I mean you want to blame somebody, blame Apple for pushing
yeah,
Lily Gladstone into the lead actress category instead of supporting, because I mean is she the lead actress in the film, like as in terms of like the actress that gets the most screen time and has the most to do character wise and all the thing? Yes, but is it more of a supporting performance to that film overall? Probably, definitely more so than Stone's performances in Poor Things. I mean that character literally is that film.
yeah,
So I mean,
I agree.
it just in terms of if you want to nuts and bolts it, like the ones and zeros of it, just to that level, then yeah, I mean, it was a no brainer that Emma Stone should win. I mean, but then if you push Lily Gladstone into supporting, then it's a battle between Lily Gladstone and Divine Joy Randolph for supporting, because Divine Joy Randolph cleaned up all through award season and at the Oscars.
Every
So
every freaking show. Yeah, she. So that was your supporting. Robert Downey Jr. finally has an Oscar. He won for Oppenheimer. Cillian Murphy, Best Actor for Oppenheimer, and of course, Oppenheimer won Film and Director as well. So no real surprises at the top of the line categories, with the exception of maybe Emma Stone being a bit of a curveball there. A couple really cool awards that were not expected to win these, or at least not consensusly.
yeah,
But Godzilla minus one won visual effects,
yeah, I saw that.
which was awesome. Godzilla minus one is an Oscar-winning film now. All the VFX artists were there. They went up on stage. Each of them had a little Godzilla like toy with them, like a figurine they took on stage with them. It was just adorable. It was really cool to see.
I mean,
And
think
then the
about what
other
that
one that
says to like that. I mean, I honestly think that's maybe just a slap in the face to how studios have treated
yeah,
American VFX houses and other VFX houses. Like think about all the stuff that came out about Marvel over the past few years about how like badly overworked their
yeah,
their VFX artists are. And Godzilla minus one, which was made for comparatively a potato and a couple of shoelaces, it
right,
is now the Oscar winner
right,
for best visual effects. The effects in it are fantastic, like absolutely
yeah.
outstanding, on a budget that was like a minuscule fraction of a lot of what you see these Hollywood blockbusters do anymore. So I mean, you and I both love that film, so you know how I feel
Oh
about
man,
that one. I'm
so
not gonna
happy.
complain about that.
So happy that that won. I thought maybe the creator would pull it off because obviously the VFX are the best part of that film, and just
Well, the
astonishing to look
Academy's
at.
still
But
watching that movie too. Like they feel like it's as endless as the rest of us did, and they're like, "Oh God, is that movie? Are they that big like looking spaceship looking thing still floating around in this? Okay, cool, 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 cool.
yeah, right, right.
Oh, nobody shot a
Uh,
missile at it yet. Like literally nobody tried to take it down yet.
nobody
Okay,
even
okay.
took a shot at that thing yet.
Eventually, somebody will get to that. I'm sure
It,
in
it,
hour 8 of the screenplay, maybe somebody will pull out a rocket launcher and just.
it's still up there, man. The Boy and the Heron kind of upset Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse too for best animated film, which was a bit of a surprise to a lot of people. Miyazaki, maybe his last film. It was thought to be his last film, and then now he's maybe doing another film. So I don't know if that narrative played into it while voting was open, but
Well, let me spoil this for you, Gerald. It absolutely did, because you got Miyazaki's last film against, let's face it, like I loved Spider-Verse, you loved Spider-Verse. It was a great movie, but it was a part two. Like it very much was. You got 2.5 hours into that animated movie, and all of a sudden it was like, "Yep, I'll see you next time for the rest of the story."
right,
And
right,
love that or hate it, like I'm really really excited for the inevitable sequel Beyond. But I mean, yeah, I mean, it's Miyazaki. I mean, like people absolutely love his work, and I think it's just I think it's, you know, that whenever you can tug on those heartstrings of it, think about, we've talked about this in the lead up to the award season, Gerald, but he was due. He was due. I mean, think about it, and like
Sure.
that category is always dominated so much by American animated films. It's always dominated so much by Disney and Pixar and all those kinds of
Yeah.
things. So, you know, I mean, yeah, it's not really surprising to me that, you know, swinging for the fences, tugging on the heartstrings. Got to, as long as you tell the right story, like whether it was a better film or not is a different debate. But
Right. The
you know,
narrative.
if
Right.
you tell that narrative, if you sing that song of like, oh, it's Miyazaki's last film, he's been this landmark animator, landmark animation genius for decades, and got to give him his due. Like, forget
Yeah.
it. Like that. Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, you're not taking that narrative away.
Yeah, not a ton of other surprises. I mean, Zone of Interest won Best Sound over a movie like Oppenheimer, which was somewhat surprising. Have you got a chance to catch that yet? I know you were. It was on
No,
your
I
to-do
missed it. It
list.
was in. I think it was playing in the theater here
Yeah.
for a day. So
Well, when you do see it, you know, however you see it, we can cover it on Patreon. But the sound is extremely impressive in that film. It's a very subtle, quiet sound design, but it's like a character in the film. The way it's, and I don't want to give anything away, but the way it kind of plays into the story is quite phenomenal versus a blockbuster epic IMAX, you know, juggernaut like Oppenheimer,
well, the
which
thing
really
is they
you
know
know,
they're given they're given all the big awards as the Academy voters are going through their checklists. They know they're all giving the big awards to Oppenheimer anyway. But you know,
yeah,
like you get down to some of those specialist awards like Best Sound, like that's all sound people working on that, so they're going to be focused, like hyper focused just on that kind of thing. Like that's why like people still don't get like how Suicide Squad won for best makeup. It's like because it was makeup people voting on it. You know,
yeah,
it's not just everybody in Joe Schmo. Like, you know, so that's where some of these other films can sneak. Like, I mean, Godzilla -1. I mean, same thing. You
yeah,
know, I mean, you know, it's not just like the entire voting body of the Academy voting on all these things. So it's
right.
great to see. It's great to see love getting spread around, especially for international films and a little bit smaller stuff. So that way, you know, you don't just see Oppenheimer like come through and just sweep everything away. Not to take
Yeah,
anything away from the sound design in that film because it's also great, but
yeah, it did win 7 out of 11 Academy Awards that it was nominated for, so it was the number one winning film on the night. Poor Things got 4 Academy Awards, which would have been number two, and then I think everything else got like 1 or 2, if anything.
yeah.
Killers of the Flower Moon went 0 for 10, and I saw this stat today that I read, and I was like baffled. But The Irishman did the same thing back in 2020 for Scorsese, and since 2012's Hugo, Scorsese has gone 0 for 26 in Oscar nominations for films that he's directed, including the movie Silence that you and I covered on this podcast. But it has been a lot of films or a lot of nominations for his films, but he has not won in over 12 years and 0 for 26. And he got shut out again. This time, of course, Lily Gladstone would have probably been the only award, you know, that probably would have won. But uh, I'll just touch on it real quick since you didn't watch the broadcast. Jimmy Kimmel, I think I like him. I like Jimmy Kimmel, but I feel like he's kind of run his course with the Oscars. He didn't look like he really wanted to be there. It wasn't as good as his previous hosting gigs, and he just kind of felt like he was phoning it in a little bit. It kind of annoyed me. I want them to get like some fresh comedic. Like I love Conan O'Brien. I love John Mulaney, who presented last night, and he did this little honorary Oscars they did like the night before, and he hosted that, and I saw some clips of him doing that on YouTube. He was hilarious. But I don't know, somebody like that, you know what I mean, to just kind of bring some fresh vibes to it, because I think Kimmel's just kind of over it, and it kind of came across that way last night.
Well, here's the thing. G. These people in that room are the stuffiest stuffed shirts of absolutely all time. So you need to have a very, very, very bland and inoffensive. And I'm not going to defend Joe Coy's absolute garbage jokes and monologue and
Yeah,
everything at
right,
the
right,
Golden
right.
Globes, because I saw that stuff. It was terrible. Like it wasn't funny, and it was just punching down at women, punching down at like
Yeah,
literally everything possible. Like at every group
yeah.
that doesn't need to be punched down at, he was taking pot shots at. So like, it's
Mhm.
not to dismiss that, but these are people who don't like to be uncomfortable or made to feel uncomfortable. They want somebody who's going to tell very, very bland, inoffensive jokes that's everybody can be like, ah, and then like,
Yeah.
like whatever, like, and I mean, Kimmel obviously is out there as an ambassador of like his own late night program, so he obviously wants to keep like a good reputation in town because he wants to make sure he keeps lots and lots of stars coming back on the show for years
Sure.
and years to come and all that kind of stuff. So that's why they do it. That's why they don't get somebody who's like a little outside of the box. I would love it. You know what? Like, you get me to watch an Oscars telecast again if you get Will Smith to host it next year. Screw it.
Wow.
Throw caution to the wind. Get caution to the wind out there.
You know what? Or Chris Rock for that matter. I mean, if you got one of those dudes to host it, you got to think viewership would go.
Well,
through
see,
the
then it's
roof
going to be a
just
stunt
based
though.
on-
If you can't get Rock to host it, because then you can automatically assume that they're going to sneak Will Smith in there just to have that moment.
Yeah,
Like
he'll be there.
it'll be like completely planned out. What did Will Smith? What I saw a report that Will Smith was sad he couldn't, like, he appealed his ban from going to the Oscars.
Yeah.
Because he wanted to see, what did he want to see win? I forget what he wanted to see win.
No, he wanted to see the "I'm Just Ken" performance, which
that's
after
right.
seeing it, he's right.
Yeah, that's right. He wanted to see "I'm Just Ken," and
Yeah.
and they wouldn't let him go to the Oscars. I'm like, Jay didn't let him watch TV, or
Yeah,
like,
watch it on YouTube. Like, what do you gotta be there?
Like, come on, Will,
But-
just click. Oh,
I will shout out "I'm Just Ken" though. Man, have you watched that yet? Did you get to see it? You need to check it out on YouTube, dude. Ryan Gosling fucking brought.
I'm still mad.
on
Listen,
that.
I'm still mad. I'm still mad that Peaches didn't get nominated, so he
I
didn't
know.
get Jack Black
Bummer.
at the Oscars performing Peaches. Although,
Yeah.
like, have you seen the new video of Tenacious D doing "Hit Me Baby One More Time"?
Baby One More Time. Yeah.
So good, man.
It's so
Tenacious
funny.
D makes literally everything better, dude. Literally
good.
everything.
So that's a little discussion there on the 96th Annual Academy Awards. Until next year, I mean, it was a long award season, obviously dominated for the most part by Barbenheimer and a few other titles. Nick and I's favorite movie of 2023 was Past Lives, which was a 5-time nominee, but also walked away empty-handed last night.
As it would have. It's one of those films that the nomination is the real win.
Right, sure. So it was a good year for movies. It was a good award season, but it is over. It's time to look forward. And with that being said, we have had a few reviews of 2024 releases so far this year on this podcast. And Nick has yet to find one that he really would recommend. And that
You know what
includes
my
Dune
number one
Part
movie of the
2.
year still is? Mean Girls. The Mean Girls musical, which I only rated a 7 because it's Mean Girls.
It has Renee Rapp in it, so I'm not going to be mad at you.
Renee Rapp is sensational. Listen, I'm coming for all of our podcasting peers who are coming for Renee Rapp. And we're
Yeah.
trashing her in their reviews. Renee Rapp
Yeah.
is sensational in that movie.
She's a
Get
freaking
out.
queen in that.
Get right out of here. I think David Powell was giving her crack. Get out of here. Knock it off. Renee Rapp was
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, I agree. She was my favorite
Oh,
part.
loved her.
Um,
So good.
So we'll see what happens. Tonight we're doing Spaceman, the new Netflix original starring Adam Sandler, Carey Mulligan, the sci-fi kind of drama.
Paul
I
Dano.
guess.
Paul Dano's
Paul
in
Dano. Paul Dano
it. As also a spaceman.
voice acting. Yes, he is a spaceman of sorts. You're right. But before we get to Spaceman, Nick, we like to begin every review by heading over to social media, seeing what the fans had to ask us this week in what we call One Big Question.
You gotta ask yourself a question.
I have a lot of questions. Number one, how dare you?
Oh, indeed.
Alrighty. I had one that I pulled out of Facebook here.
Give it to me. I got a fun one for you after your Facebook one, because yours is going to be all serious and dour, and
Not
you're going to
too
read it like
serious,
Brother Gerald off the back of the pamphlet for the cult. We get it.
but it's actually pretty basic. I'm curious to where you're going to go here. I think I know where you're going to go, but also want to kind of hear your reasoning. But
Okay.
our friend Amanda over on the Facebook page, Amanda Inman, she says, do you prefer Adam Sandler in comedies or dramas? So very simple. Would you rather see him in a comedy or in a drama, and why?
I mean, I grew up like watching movies like The Water Boy and Happy Gilmore, and those were all like movies that were out when I was like coming of age and all that kind of stuff. I adore those movies. I can't pick him out. I mean, he's done some good dramatic work. Not Uncut Gems, Gerald. I'm sorry, but he's done some good dramatic work. He's got dramatic chops. It's not that he doesn't have dramatic chops, but man, there's something special about what he brings to a comedy. His energy that he brings to a comedy is something unrivaled, I think, by a lot of people and a lot of people in comedy. So it's got to be comedy for me.
I'm going to say the opposite. I'm going to say drama. And you know why I say
Because of
drama? It's
Uncut
not just-
Gems? Yes, okay.
Well, that has a lot to do with it, sure.
Wow.
But not just for Adam Sandler. I love seeing actors that are known for a specific box, and they step out of that box and are able to accomplish and surprise people. And it's not just him. I mean, I love some stuff he's done in the dramatic world. But, you know, like Tom Hanks was a comedic actor for decades. And then he branches out, does Forrest Gump, Philadelphia, and so on. And now, you know, he can kind of do whatever. Jim Carrey, you know, was a slapstick talking out of his ass cheeks in Ace Ventura. And fast forward to Man on the Moon and Eternal Sunshine and Truman Show. Like, I just love when actors who are kind of known for something surprise us by doing something completely different.
Right.
So I crave those kind of roles for an actor like Sandler because, you know, the other roles that you were talking about, I love too, but I feel like that's him. Like, I mean, you know what I mean? Like he could do that any time, and he probably will do it 100 times, and he'll get all his buddies to go to Hawaii, and they'll film it, and it'll be great. Drew Barrymore will be there. It'll be awesome. But I don't know. I just love when he challenges himself, and we'll talk about his performance in Spaceman to kind of lend to what I'm talking about. But I love when those comedic actors kind of turn the tables and try something new. And I think he's done some good things in the dramatic world too. So if I had to pick, I would say drama. That'd be my answer. What question did you find over there, man?
I got a couple here. First one is from the aforementioned David Powell. Don't come for Renee Rapp. Would things have been improved if Paul Dano had played Jakob and Sandler had voiced Harush using his hilarious little Nicky voice?
It would have been a different movie, right? I mean, it would not have been this movie. It would have. I don't know. What do you think? I feel like I think he's being stupid here. He's being silly. David is, as usual. We got another kind of fake question here. But if it was that way, there's no way you could be invested in this story. And I don't know if you were as it is, but I'm just saying, right?
We'll get there. We'll talk. We'll talk a little bit about what I thought about this movie. But I got one more fun one for you, G. You ready?
All right, sure. Hit me.
All right. So in the Discord channel, we were all chatting about remaking Dune with Happy Madison actors, just because Adam Sandler was on the brain. And so we got far enough to where we cast a lot of people in roles in Dune, but we never cast Adam Sandler. Gerald, channeling back to last week and the review of Dune Part 2 Electric Boogaloo, who would Adam Sandler play? Now, let me give you who we already got. You ready?
I was going to say, I haven't seen this. Go ahead.
Okay. We Dan says we have Rob Schneider as the Emperor, Nick Swardson as Stilgar, Taylor Lautner is Austin Butler's character, Fayud Al-Rautha, whatever. Noah Schnapp is Paul Boring Atreides Nuts. I read that just like Dan typed it. Fairuza Balk is the Reverend Mother, Rebecca Ferguson. Who does Adam Sandler play of the cast that's like remaining? I guess we got like Lord Leto, Atreides.
Well, I mean, you got to give her. I was gonna say you got to give him Leto. Then he's got to be the father. Who was Paul again? Who did you guys?
Noah Schnapp. I'm not 100% familiar with who that is.
Oh, I was gonna say, well, you got to make Adam Sandler Leto. He's got to.
I would think you make him. You make him bear.
Or Duncan Idaho.
I guess Julio said Kevin James is the lead Harkonnen. He's the Baron. So I guess maybe.
Okay, yeah.
Adam Sandler is the space worm. Like he comes up out of the desert like, "Whoa, look at you harvested my spice!" Woo. Like that. Like we could.
Why can I picture that so vividly? I feel like that's happened.
And then we were all just theorizing. These are again. We have fun with our fans. We love you guys. Thank you so much. We had fun. And I said if I had to suffer through Villeneuve's Dune to get Adam Sandler's Dune, it was all worth it. So put it inside of my body.
Talking about the Oscars earlier, I can't wait next year when Dune's all over the place.
Yeah, I can't wait until it doesn't get nominated for anything except for maybe cinematography, and that's probably about it.
Cinematography, score. I mean, come on, editing, perhaps.
Too early in the movie. Yeah, editing.
Visual
Yeah,
effects.
yeah, it needed more editing. Yes, exactly. Yes, I agree.
My God. All right, Nick. Thank you for the questions, guys. Even the real ones, even the fake ones. We don't care. We love you guys. We're going to start every episode out, or every review out, with what we call the early score reveal.
Damn it, this always happens. I think I'm gonna score and then I never score. It's not fair.
I'm
So,
pre-rating, before it ever is even announced for production, I'm pre-rating Happy Madison production Dune 20 out of 10. I need it. Woo, come here, Hawkinins.
Who is this? Oh man. I'm crazy sandworm guy. Give me some candy. All right. So, out of 10, Nick and I are going to give our score for Spaceman, and we have not discussed it with each other. We do not know what each other thought of the film, and then we will dive into our discussion. Out of 10, individually. Here we go. Nick, you ready? Count us in.
Ready, baby. 1, 2, 3 is also the announcement of my score and the end of the countdown. Double mine for
All right.
Gerald's.
All right, so a 3 from Nick and a 6 out of 10
How
for
on
me.
earth did you give this a passing grade?
I mean, barely. We'll get into it. A 3 is, man, that might be. What did you give? Is that the worst score you've ever given on the show? You've given a couple twos, right?
Five Nights at Freddy's. Five Nights at Freddy's got a 2.
Okay, as I say, you've given out a 2, I think. Okay.
Yeah, Five Nights at Freddy's got a 2. So, but I mean, 2024 is not hitting it for me in terms of film, yo.
So a 6 and a 3 is a 9. It's a 4.5. A 4.5 from the P's on Spaceman. Go ahead, man. I want to hear you. Go ahead. I want to hear where you're going to go with your take.
So, all right. So, number one, we already saw a better version of this movie a few years ago. It was called Ad Astra, and it had Brad Pitt out running away from his daddy issues to go to the far edges of the solar system. I loved that movie. That was a much better version of the same movie that this is. I read a synopsis of the novel this is based on, Gerald, because this is based on a novel by a Czech author. And apparently the only thing that they took from it is giant space spider. Everything else is like completely different than the plot of the movie. And we won't spoil the plot of the movie just yet. No spoilers just yet and everything like that. But Gerald, I really, really liked this early on because I really, really was hoping, number one, I'm an outer space guy. I love, I grew up, I would read articles about outer space, like space probes, space exploration. I love it. So if you put space exploration in a movie, it's already starting out on a really, really high rating for me. You gotta try hard to screw it up for me. And Sandler, like I said, I like Sandler dramatically. He's got good dramatic chops. And I was like, let me just see Adam Sandler alone in this space shuttle trying to just bang around with his thoughts, getting more and more lonely, getting more and more isolated, all these different things. Let's talk first, before that about the Czech Republic's decision to send a single person on this space mission. Whoa, going on the space mission.
I was going to say, are you back in character?
Yeah, I'm just slipping back in there. I mean, seriously, we'll talk about that a little bit later on as we go as well. But Gerald, as this went on, and the more and more that ridiculous space spider showed up in this movie, it took me further and further and further. And if I have to hear Paul Dano say the phrase skinny human one more time, I'm gonna put my fist through something. It grated on me by the end of the movie. He said it so many times. I actively grew to hate this. I started off a 9 or an 8 or 9. I'm like, I'm gonna love this. First 10 minutes or so, I'm like, I'm gonna love this. This is gonna be great. And it slowly slid down. And why were all the flashback and memory shots of where we're getting to know he and Carey Mulligan's their relationship? Why were all those in this weird fisheye, this really skewed weird perspective visually that made it even harder to watch than it already was? So many baffling choices were made in this movie. Sandler's great. Mulligan's great. I think their performances are really, really great, but they cannot save this film. This script is a disaster. I hated this.
Yeah. This movie has a lot of problems. I don't...
Does it have an 8-legged problem? A big 8-legged problem? That they tried to make look cute? Did you see the thing? They really tried to make it look cute.
Look, man, I think you know this as a friend of mine, but spiders I have a fear of spiders. Like there's a new horror trailer that came out recently called Sting, and I won't watch it because it's about an alien spider that gets trapped in somebody's house or whatever.
Does
And
it
I'm
have
like,
Paul Dano's voice too?
no. I wish it did, based on what I've
Does it
heard.
have Paul Dano's voice? Skinny human.
I hated the skinny human thing that was overused,
Said it
but
like 100 times in the movie.
other than that, I like Paul Dano's voice performance, though. I thought it was, I don't know, maybe that's me because I do hate spiders, to have that kind of soothing, almost therapeutic character coming from the voice
Okay.
made it a little more palatable for me, because I remember seeing this trailer a couple months ago, and they don't really dive into the voice acting too much in the trailer, and you do see the spider crawling on the roof of the ship or whatever in the trailer. And at the time, I'm like, "Oh fuck, no, I'm not doing that. I can't do that." And then I come to find out later, oh, it's voiced by Paul Dano, and they become friends, and he's not like a evil spider or whatever. So I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. And for me, I I agree with you on a lot of points where we got past like the midway point of this movie, where I felt like, okay, it feels like the same scenes kind of over and over again. Does that make sense? Like
It does.
it was the same shit, like kind of happening to him and dealing with his loneliness and isolation, and like that whole concept like is very interesting to me, kind of like what you said with like Ad Astra and even Interstellar, Christopher Nolan's film. Like it's not a new concept, I mean, we've done it before. So but I do like that concept, and I do like that idea of how you would deal with that mentally and what would keep you going in that scenario. So I was intrigued enough to where I wanted to see Sandler's performance and how that translated to him dealing with this kind of regurgitated storyline that we've seen before in sci-fi. So because of Sandler's performance, because of Paul Dano's voice performance, and I did like some of the effects too, like the visuals towards the end of the movie. We'll talk about that. That'll be in spoilers. So there's some stuff that visually I really enjoyed. I thought the score was great in this movie. It kind of matched with what was happening. There were some baffling choices made, like you said, and it was a 5. It was a 5 to 6 for me, but I do think I would recommend this to someone if they're a big sci-fi fan, or if they're a Sandler fan, or of course if they're both. And because of that, I wanted to make sure I give it a recommend. But it's a very, very soft recommend for me, and it's heavily weighted by my enjoyment of Sandler's performance in this movie. So there you go. All right, let's get into spoilers. That way we can talk about whatever you want to talk about, Nick, with Spaceman. So going forward, we will be talking about the movie Willy-Nilly. So if you don't want to be spoiled, watch it on Netflix and then come back and listen to the rest of the episode. So, Nick, you wanted to talk a little bit about some stuff that bothered you from the government's kind of idea to send him into space to begin with.
Yeah, it would never happen. Would literally never happen. Like billions upon billions. And now, so one thing I really liked about the movie, which I was hoping they would play more with, but it was only toward the real beginning, was the corporatization of space. Like, he had sponsors.
Yeah.
Like, in order to use like this disinfectant spray, he had to like do an ad read like live in the capsule, like and whatever. And like he was like on this like decongestant like thing and everything like that. I really, really liked that. I was really hoping they were going to play more into that kind of thing, and there was going to be more of a meditation on, because I mean, we have this like private companies trying to land on the moon and stuff like that right now. Like we have those kinds of different things happening right now where people are concerned about like privatization and like corporatization of outer space and things like that. I mean, we've seen those kinds of things in movies before too. So I was really hoping we get more of that. So I liked that, but then that kind of really played a huge backseat, and we really didn't see much of it anymore. Can we talk for a moment, Gerald, please, just about Space Nutella? Space Nutella apparently is just a huge plot point in this. I don't know why. Whatever. Yeah. Spiders love Space Nutella. Who knew? So, but like I said, never in a million years would this happen. It's a billions and billions and billions of dollars in capital sunk into this vehicle, this vessel, this space vehicle, and the fuel and all of the engineering and everything that would have to go into the construction of everything here is for the size of that vessel too. No way ever. And this is the first thing. This is like a Snowpiercer level like break for me in terms of like me buying into the concept of the movie. No way ever would they send that vessel out there with just a one person crew, especially with like the hyper loneliness and isolation and stuff. Give him a crewmate who dies, like who he like goes crazy or some other weird thing. As they're approaching the cloud, like the crewmate goes insane and he's left by himself, and then he feels alone, and then he starts hallucinating about a big uwu space spider with Paul Dano's voice that calls him skinny human like 50,000 times.
Well, do you want to let's get into that kind
about
of
the big
larger...
uwu space spider? How big and uwu cute they tried to make the big uwu cute space spider. Whoa,
Yeah,
big
that.
uwu cute space spider. Oh, you can almost make this a Sandler thing. You didn't even have to try.
Let's get into that larger kind of thought process there. So, this might be a dumb question, but like in your perception of this movie, and I know you just saw it. It's been a couple weeks since I saw it. I'm trying to reflect on when I was watching it. But as you were watching it tonight, like, are you under the assumption that this is in his mind, or do you think this is actually an alien being that was on the ship and it really happened?
If I was forced to choose, I think the film wants us to believe it's one thing, but I see, and here's the thing about it. I never kind of bought that general conceit that this was an actual alien, super cute uwu spider that was just floating around randomly out in space and just found the vessel and just decided to hop aboard. Like it never really lands with me, so I never really bought it as a real thing. I always assumed the film would maybe get to a point where it would have pummeled therapy into Sandler's character enough that he didn't need the space spider anymore, the uwu space spider, and then it floats out into space to go die, which it does in the movie. It does float out to space randomly to go die after it just transmutes through the wall, because that's just a normal thing uwu space spiders can do. And I mean, like, yeah, no, like there's just different things like that I just didn't buy.
Yeah, those breaks in logic is kind of what makes me think it wasn't really there, I guess. And I think that the movie, and I know you were critical of the screenplay, but I think the movie does do a good job of leaving that kind of ambiguous. Like, it never says it's one way or the other. It's just kind of like left up to interpretation. I didn't really know as I was watching it, but in reflecting on it, I don't think it was ever really there. I think it was more his mental state kind of messing with him. And I
think it's a manifestation of his guilt from leaving his wife behind, of not being there when his other unborn child was lost, and not being there again for the child that she's currently carrying. Having like all of his abandonment issues and all those different kinds of things, like literally all those things in a cosmic storm, a big cosmic cloud, if you will, Gerald, that he has to float into in order to find all the answers to humanity and life and everything.
It's his conscious, really. I think.
Yeah.
I think it's a form of his conscious, Hanush, because there's one point kind of towards the last act of the film when Hanush kind of finds out like he's basically not a good husband, and he shouldn't have left. And there was one of my favorite lines in the movie. One of my favorite lines in the movie is when Dano says something to the effect of, "My interest in you has expired." And he like leaves, that first time when he left or whatever. Yeah. And Sandler is like begging him not to leave because he's become dependent on this relationship, even though I think it's in his mind. But
he left, but then came back at a pivotal moment that the plot needed him to. Yes,
exactly. Yes, for some hazelnut and Nutella, or
needed some space Nutella.
What did you think of some of the side performance? I mean, Isabella Rossellini's in this, which I was like, whoa, wait a second, I hadn't seen her in a minute. But she's not necessarily a villain, but she's one of the more, kind of antagonistic characters, I guess, kind of leading the space mission.
Yeah, I mean, she's see, here's again, this is where I call the entire premise of the film into question. The fact that they're so worried about him that they sent him into space alone on a year-round voyage. Number one,
Yeah.
what is this spacecraft fueled by that it can make a flight to Jupiter in a half a year?
Right.
Seriously, I need to know, what is this thing running on? Because that's a okay, sure, no problem, I can buy that. Like, because it doesn't look like it's supposed to be set like in the far-flung future or even in the
Yeah, I was
near
gonna say,
future.
did they ever mention when it is really? I
No,
don't think
it,
they
it
did.
doesn't really look like that, but the designs kind of harken back to like almost an Alien type, Ridley Scott type feel, and a Star Warsy, like everything's very boxy and everything looks very mechanical as opposed to computerized and things like that.
Mhm.
So I think that, and maybe that was just a conscious choice that they wanted to pay homage to all the different space movies that they all loved as they were coming up and things like that. I don't necessarily know, but yeah, I like the performance is fine. Like I said, I don't even dislike Mulligan's performance. I really, really like Mulligan's performance too. But also, my other problem with it is you got Carey Mulligan in this movie. Give her something to do.
Yeah, she's super underused in this. I especially
Ooh.
coming with the same year that Maestro came out, also on Netflix. Um, I thought that, and I think you kind of are echoing this too, but I thought that they could have spent a lot more time reflecting on things that weren't on the spaceship, whether that was through flashbacks or leading up to the mission, or, if we do it like in chronological order or whatever. But I just started to lose interest as the movie went on, really past the halfway point. It kind of lost me because, kind of like I said, it just became super redundant, super repetitive. I did like the very end, like the last 5 or 10 minutes. I thought it was touching. I like the effects at the end when Hanush floats out there and the kind of purple, galaxy radiant light there, and he gets overtaken by, whatever sickness was taking over his body, and he eventually perishes, and Sandler's emotional about it. And my interpretation then is that him and Carey Mulligan basically get back together, right, when he gets back to Earth, or is he just thinking about that? What do you think? Because that was somewhat unclear.
Words. I don't know. I really, by that point of the movie, like you're talking about how you thought the ending was touching. By the time the movie got to the ending, it had totally lost me by that point. Like the first, please contextualize this, ladies and gentlemen. If you're listening to this, the first 2/3 of this movie, the first 2 acts, is a giant woo space spider, and I keep saying woo because it is seriously designed to try to be as cute as possible. It's this super cute woo space spider that is legitimately just mentally beating Adam Sandler's character until he admits he's a like crappy human being.
You're
Like
right.
that's basically what it needs to do, because that's when he says the line that Gerald said, my interest in you has expired, and he floats away into space but doesn't really
Right.
float away because he's right there to come back as soon as Adam Sandler's character's like, man, I guess I was just a crappy person my whole life and I need to apologize for it. And
Yeah.
then as soon as he does, boom, Uwu Space Spider comes back. Like,
Yeah.
God in hell, this by the time it got to the ending, I didn't care. I wanted him to take his helmet off and suffocate and explode and die. I was so over this movie. I did not want it to go on anymore.
You're making me want to drop this down to a 5 where I had it initially, but I'll leave it at a 6. Look, guys, as we wrap up here on Spaceman, don't rush to see this thing. I mean,
Nope.
like I said,
It is movie.
from my perspective, if you like Sandler, check it out. He gives a great performance. If you're a fan of his, I think you'll dig what he does in this movie. It's a pretty layered, pretty emotional performance. But without that, I mean, the movie's not good, really. I mean, I did like Dano in the voice role, which is pretty big for me because I absolutely hate spiders. So I dug that. I mean, aside from the performances and some of the visuals that I enjoyed and the score, take it or leave it for me personally. Nick, you want to wrap up on anything on your 3 out of 10 over there?
Well, I think like you said earlier, you had mentioned it didn't spend enough time kind of literally going over anything else. And that's because too much of the plot of this film was him talking to a giant imaginary spider, Gerald. If they would have, like, a more adept director or a more adept screenwriter, you've seen films like this where it's just a solo character alone. Like, think of Sam Rockwell in Moon. Think of Tom Hardy in, I forget what that movie was called, where he's in the car like the whole time. And it's literally just he's just in the car literally the whole time. I know you know what I'm talking about. audience, help me out here. Bump it into comments down below, YouTube or wherever on social media. Get us. But Tom, I know what I'm talking about. It's a movie.
I get it.
A more adept screenwriter, a more adept filmmaker could have taken the premise of a man just alone with his thoughts floating out there amongst the stars. I mean, a premise that's been done to death. Again, going to the edge of the universe to discover your humanity. Like it's been done, but a more adept team could have made something really, really more enjoyable and really more engaging than this, where you're just kind of delving further and further into his psychosis and delving further and further into his mental state as he kind of comes to grips with all of the things that he's done incorrectly in his life. It just didn't need to be a manifestation of a giant uwu space spider in order to get us there. And
I think to your point too, and I'll add this to what you're saying real quick. I think that what they must have done in the creative process of making this movie is they thought we're going to hook people because it has been done. But what we're going to do is we're going to put this giant spider, which, I mean, for me, I'm like, fuck that. But we're going to put this giant spider in this story that you've seen 100 times, and that's going to be the hook, right? Which, to be honest with you, it kind of was the hook for me. That and seeing Sandler do drama again. But then it's like once you get us there, nothing really happens. It's
well, you're expecting a much different kind of movie because you think big space spider on a spaceship, you're thinking it's going to eat him.
Yeah.
Or, there's going to be blood and guts. And I mean, I know that got the horror guy tingling, even if you did have to
it's
see a space spider in order to see it. But
right.
Yeah, I think it was maybe trying to like almost play against your expectations just a little bit there. As you go to see it. I hated this. Don't waste your time. Don't go see this.
All right.
Maybe if you imagine Adam Sandler's voice, like just doing the whole thing, like, I'm a cosmonaut, like something like that. Like maybe you'd be more invested in it or something. I don't know. It's not good. The performances are not enough to save you from the boredom of a giant talking space spider. You skinny human. Give me the space Nutella. I need it. It's so creamy and smooth.
2024 is
get better,
trouble.
please.
Is in trouble. We're almost 3 full months into the year here. What the F is going on? Nick, we're gonna try to correct the ship next week, buddy.
Dune Part 2 again. That's how bad this movie was. Yeah.
Dune Part 2 is a masterpiece.
Wow.
Need a more sand though. That's good. Next week, a movie called Love Lies Bleeding from A24 starring Kristen Stewart is one that I'm very excited to see that's playing in my town. And I said, Nick, I'm adding it to the list. It's kind of a horror movie, kind of an action movie. I've heard good things about it. It's directed by Rose Glass as her sophomore effort. She did the first film she did I love called Saint Maud. Knowing you probably never saw that. That was like a religious horror movie a few years ago. But we're going to check out Love Lies Bleeding, and hopefully that brings Nick back on the right side of things for 2024. But, I mean, we'll see. I mean,
it's already got like a skeletal, methed out looking Ed Harris in it. So
that's true. Yeah.
I mean, he looks like weird in the trailer. Like, did they like starve Ed Harris for like a month before they started shooting? Like that's what it looks like. It looks like they locked him in a cell and just starved him for a month.
Yeah, he was on a ship with Sandler and the fucking spider, and they didn't feed him anything but Nutella.
Even the spider and Sandler had space Nutella. Like he's got nothing.
Oh man, but I'm looking forward to seeing this one, man. So hopefully you enjoy it. But we'll see. We'll get back together next week and we'll talk about Love Lies Bleeding. Nick, that's it, man. Sandler. Doing, I don't know. I thought Sandler might do something for 2024, but I guess not.
I'm gonna go drown my sorrows in a big tub of space Nutella.
Now that could have been your cold open. Why didn't you do that during the cold open?
Dan, there you go. Dan, cut it and put it back at the beginning of the episode. This is why I miss Netflix and Swill, because I really want to hear Dan savagely berate this film. Dan, watch Spaceman. I need to hear a Dan rant about this movie.
Yeah, he loves Ad Astra though, but this is not that. This is
this is not weird. That. This is Ad Astra, but with Adam Sandler and a giant uwu space spider in it.
Exactly.
That's just
perfect summary.
No.
Nick, no. Let's try to fix 2024 next week, man.
All right. We got Ghostbusters Frozen Empire coming up later this month, so I mean,
We could do that as well.
It's possible. What do you mean we could do that as well? Or are we going to do a Ghostbusters film? The first movie I ever watched in a movie theater. Are we going to go see a Ghostbusters movie on this show? Yes.
Yeah. I mean, we could do that. If
You made
want.
me watch a movie with Adam Sandler and a giant space spider in it. I'm in charge now. I'm
All right,
look
that's
at me.
fine.
Look at me.
That's fair.
I'm the captain now.
You're taking over the programming after Spaceman. I actually defer that to you. That's fine. I wanted to like this more. I don't know what to tell you. All right, man. I love you. Yeah, all 8 legs of yours, I love. I'll see
I love
you next
you like
week.
I
We'll
love
talk
Space
about,
Nutella, baby.
Yeah, man. I'll see you then.